Oh, I didn't see what that message says. Hi and welcome everybody. Let me just see. Don't worry, you don't need microphone or camera. You can, if you want to say anything during the meeting or questions after, you can always do it via the chat. Okay. And are we recording? Yes.
Yes. Oh.
Okay, yeah. Right, should we get started, everybody? Now, I won't be able to see you as I start presenting, so please, Julia or one of the other area SENCOs, just shout out if there's something or questions as we go along. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's session. We're going to explore the new OFSTED Early Years Inspection Toolkit, which came into effect in November. Our focus today will be on the inclusion and SEND requirements and how they're embedded in the framework and what that means for your practice. And by the end of this briefing, you'll hopefully have a clearer understanding of what the focus of the new OFSTED toolkit is in terms of inclusion and SEND, and the types of questions inspectors may ask and how to hold confident, high quality conversations during inspections. So first of all, can I just check you can all see my PowerPoint slides? Can somebody just give me a shout?
Yes, they can see them.
Yeah. Okay. So this training is aimed primarily at PVI nurseries as it focuses on Ofsted's early years inspection toolkit rather than the school inspection toolkit. However, the content is also highly relevant to schools because it aligns with the EYFS statutory guidance and reflects the same principles of inclusion and SEND practice. So what's new? The toolkit introduces a comprehensive inspection framework that looks beyond compliance. It's about quality provision, leadership, safeguarding and inclusion. Inspectors will gather evidence through observations and professional conversations, not just paperwork. This is designed to support continuous improvement and reduce unnecessary extra work for settings. The emphasis on using your existing documents rather than creating extra files just for inspection. Essentially, it's about making the process more meaningful and less burdensome. So before we start, we just need to clarify who the leaders are in an early years setting. When Ofsted talks about leadership in the new early years inspection toolkit, that includes you as the SENCO. You are the leader of inclusive practice and SEND provision in your setting. Leadership isn't just about managers, it's about anyone who guides practice and makes key decisions that impact children's outcomes. So let's have a closer look at your leadership role. SENCOs are not just support staff, you are leaders who empower your teams. That means you providing training and guidance so all staff have the knowledge and confidence to support inclusion and SEND effectively. You lead early identification, develop support plans, monitor progress and coach room staff on adapting strategies to meet individual needs. Collaboration and partnerships are key. This means building strong relationships with parents, professionals and other staff to ensure shared decision making and consistent support for children. Compliance is another critical area. SENCOs must follow the EYFS and the SEND Code of Practice and engage in ongoing professional development to ensure they're providing the best quality of provision for children in their care. And finally, safeguarding and culture. You play a vital role in safeguarding children with SEND by working closely with the designated safeguarding lead and wider leadership team. Beyond compliance, you help create a confident, inclusive environment where every child feels safe and valued. So think about this. How visible is your leadership in these areas? And what steps can you take to strengthen your impact? In a nutshell, you need to know what your setting does well and what you need to get better at, and then what you're doing to improve the areas you've identified as weaknesses. But we don't want you to feel overwhelmed by this. Later in today's training, we will be providing you with some help and further support with this. The toolkit aligns closely with the EYFS framework. The EYFS sets the standards for learning, development, health and safety, and the toolkit evaluates how effectively you meet those standards. SEND support is integrated throughout, with an emphasis on early identification and targeted interventions. Working together with parents and professionals remains a cornerstone of high quality provision. Excuse me while I have a little drink before I have a cough. These principles are taken from the Early Years Inspection Operating Guide for Inspectors. All inspectors will be working to 3 key principles. The first principle is that they will always consider the extent to which children achieve. So this includes how children are developing knowledge, skills and confidence, if children feel that they belong and feel safe, welcomed and valued, and if children are thriving because the right systems, support, processes and levels of oversight by leaders such as you as SENCOs are in place. Principle 2 will be a focus on leadership, inclusion and whether there is an open and positive safeguarding culture. And principle 3 is that inspectors will always start from the point of view of the expected standard in the evaluation area. To achieve this baseline, a setting must meet every criteria within an evaluation area, marking a shift from the previous best fit model to this new secure fit model. The inspectors will then collate the information into the new style report cards with narrative explanations of strengths and priorities for each area, rather than a report with an overall grade. There is a link at the end of the PowerPoint to take you to some example report cards. But let's look at the inspection evaluation areas. There's a broader range of evaluation areas that will be considered during inspection, with safeguarding and inclusion right at the top. This includes support for vulnerable and disadvantaged children, such as those with SEND, early years pupil premium, and anyone facing barriers. Other areas include curriculum and teaching, achievement, behaviours and attitudes, children's welfare and leadership. Each area will receive its own grading. Oh, sorry, I've jumped ahead. Each area will receive its own grading. Safeguarding will receive a met or not met grading, whilst all other areas are graded on a 5-point scale, which ranges from exceptional, where practice has a transformational impact, to urgent improvement, where breaches significantly affect safety or learning. Understanding these categories helps you see where your strengths lie and where development might be needed. So this slide is about taking a closer look at the layout of the new inspection toolkit. Think of it as a practical guide. It's not just for inspection day, but for ongoing reflection and improvement. It's designed to help you embed best practice consistently. When you open the toolkit, you'll notice it's structured around those key inspection areas I've just mentioned on the previous slide. Each section provides clear criteria and prompts that help you evaluate your setting against the standards. The layout is intentionally simple and user-friendly. It's not about creating extra paperwork. Instead, it encourages you to use your existing documents and evidence. And remember the inspection principles. Principle 3 is that the inspectors will always start from the point of view of the expected standard in the evaluation area. This means they begin by checking whether your setting securely meets everything in the expected level before they'll consider evidence of stronger or weaker practice. So when you review the toolkit, keep this in mind. It's your baseline for reflection and improvement. And inclusion really is the golden thread within the Ofsted Early Years Inspection Toolkit. But what does that mean? It means that although inclusion is one of the 6 inspection evaluation areas, it isn't just a separate box to tick. It's woven through every single judgment area, from curriculum design to leadership decisions. Inclusion underpins everything. When inclusion is strong, the benefits ripple across your setting and children make better progress. Staff feel more confident and partnerships with families become stronger. And it's important to note that you cannot achieve the expected standard in any inspection evaluation area if the inclusion element is not met. So inclusion isn't optional, it's essential. As SENCOs, this is a key message to take back to your teams. Inclusion must be visible in everyday practice, not just on inspection day. So think about how you can evidence this through adaptations, staff training, and collaborative work with families and professionals. This is what inspectors will be looking for. I would urge you, if you haven't already looked at the new inspection toolkit, to do so as soon as possible. Remember, the new framework operates on a secure fit model, replacing the previous best fit approach. To be awarded a specific grade, for example, expected standard, a provider must meet all the criteria defined for that grade. So to be awarded a strong standard in an evaluation area, the setting must meet all the criteria in both the expected standard and the strong standard. So again, just to reiterate, as it's so important, a setting cannot achieve the expected standard in an area that has not met the specific inclusion elements or legal requirements set out for that area. So on this slide, we're looking at the 2 ends of the grading spectrum within the new Ofsted Early Years Inspection Toolkit. At one end, we have exceptional. This is where practice goes beyond meeting standards and has a truly transformational impact on children's outcomes. It's not just about doing things well, it's about sustained excellence that changes lives and sets a benchmark for others. On the other end, we have urgent improvement. This grade signals serious concerns, breaches that compromise safety or learning. It's a clear indicator that immediate action is needed to protect children and restore quality. Understanding these extremes helps you reflect on where your setting sits and what steps you may need to take. And remember, inclusion and SEND are part of every judgment area, so weaknesses in these aspects can significantly affect your overall grade in an area. So going back and thinking more about that golden thread of inclusion again, inspectors will look at leadership, safeguarding culture and daily inclusive practices. They'll want to see how you collaborate with parents and professionals and how you adapt your curriculum and teaching strategies to support emotional well-being and social inclusion. One of the ways which inspectors do this is through case sampling. During the initial planning call, children are selected for a more in-depth look at what it's like for each child in your setting and how you ensure that they are fully included in all aspects of your provision. So this would usually be a child classed as vulnerable, for example, a child in receipt of early years pupil premium, child with SEND, or in the care of the local authority. And typically, inspectors and leaders would choose one child from each room. Remember, evidencing inclusion isn't something you can pull out of the bag on inspection day. The inspection toolkit digs deep into what's embedded in your everyday practice. That's why it's vital for SENCOs and managers to start reviewing now, ensuring the right systems, evidence and approaches are in place to create environments where every child feels they belong and that they can thrive. So before we move on to how we can help, let's summarise some key aspects of the new framework regarding inclusion. First, inclusion is not just a separate evaluation area. It's threaded through all areas of the inspection. Inspectors will look at the impact of leaders' work on inclusion in every judgment area, from quality of education to leadership and management. The focus is on all children, especially vulnerable children, for example, disadvantaged children, those with SEND and those known to social care. Inspectors will want to see how well your setting meets these needs consistently, and not just on inspection day. And remember, when we talk about leaders in this context, that includes you as the SENCO. You are a leader of inclusive practice. Your role is to ensure that inclusion is visible in everyday practice and that you can confidently explain what your setting does well, what it needs to improve, and what actions you're taking to address those areas. And finally, remember that link back to the inspection principles. Principle 3 is that the inspectors will always start from the point of view of the expected standard in the evaluation area. That's your baseline. So make sure you know what that looks like for inclusion and SEND in your setting. Now, before I hand over to Julia, I quickly wanted to share an example of an inspection report I've read today. And I really want to just look at this with our SENCO hats on to see how that golden thread of inclusion impacts the different inspection areas. So just bear with me while I minimise that. And if anybody has got any questions while I'm jigging around, please just shout them out. Okay, so can you see that inspection report, everyone? Am I sharing the right thing for a starter?
Yeah.
And I can see faces now, so that's nice. So this is one literally I pulled up today, but I thought it was a good one to look at with our SENCO hats on. As you can see, it had 5 areas highlighted as needs attention and 1 as urgent improvement. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you or show you, but I've just highlighted a few things again with that SENCO hat on in the different areas of how inclusion has been a point that's possibly pulled these gradings down. So here in achievement, we can see that the planning of the curriculum is not targeted enough to fully support and meet all children's individual needs, including those with special educational needs and/or disabilities, and those in receipt of additional funding. As a result, children are not as well prepared as possible for their future learning. So all these areas got needs attention, sorry. Similarly, in children's welfare, while staff are assigned as key persons in name, they do not actually understand and fulfil the entirety of the key person role. This means staff do not fully tailor the curriculum to meet children's individual needs and promote their welfare. So again, this area got needs attention, and there were lots of positives around some positive relationships, but I thought that was interesting again, that was again looking at those individual needs of children. Curriculum and teaching had a lot that was a concern around inclusion. And again, they do not always plan and provide enough appropriate learning experiences to meet individual needs. As a result, occasionally, while some children happily play alone, there is limited engagement for them with staff or peers during the day to help build and extend their learning. I think that's quite an interesting one, in that just because children are happy and playing and accessing the environment, we're not meeting their curriculum and teaching needs. We need to know where they're starting from and how we're going to build on that. And this next part builds on that a little bit more. Staff know children well. Leaders observe children and assess their development to identify the key steps for next steps in children's development. However, they're not using this information to adapt or prioritise aspects of children's learning, taking into account their different starting points. And it goes on to talk about how it's left to chance rather than purposeful planning, and that this particularly impacts some children with special educational needs and or disabilities. And unsurprisingly, inclusion's got lots of things, but again, what a little bit that I'd like to just pick out was this section here, which says leaders acknowledge there are strategies in place to support children with SEND that are not routinely used or applied in provision. So I thought that was a really interesting one, that the leaders are saying that there are strategies there, but they knew that they weren't being applied routinely. And then it goes on to talk about that funding perhaps isn't being used in a targeted way for specific children that are getting that funding. And then just the last point, which I've just picked out, urgent improvement with leadership and governance. And I thought, again, thinking of you as SENCOs, and we're talking about you as leaders there, leaders do not have a careful oversight of all aspects of the provision. So they are not clear of the settings, areas to improve. So it's not just about the provision, it's knowing where those weaknesses are and what you're going to do about it, which is hopefully a tedious link into Julia's next bit. I've been a little bit doom and gloom, and I really didn't want to be, but Julia's section, she's got the nice section with, okay, so now how can we help you do that? But is anybody, before we do move on to Julia's part, has anybody got any questions about that section? I mean, you can ask them at the end, you can put them in the chat. Sarah?
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't know if it's probably more towards my section as a general whole, but obviously because of the new OFSTED framework that came out and the reduction of paperwork, so trying to make sure that we can reduce as much as not necessary kind of paperwork, if that makes sense. We have kind of more tracking for our children with additional needs, so we can make sure that we can track their development and make sure that they're on target for their next steps and all that kind of jazz. But our typically developing children, obviously we make sure that we've got kind of like a week ahead of planning and things like that to do, but it's not necessarily recorded. From that report, it makes it sound as if obviously the planning for that curriculum kind of thing wasn't there. So are we looking at maybe needing more paperwork then to justify our curriculum planning for those typically developing, say for instance, to kind of show that actually we are, so rather than just kind of talking about this is what we're doing and the whole process of that, the intention, the impact and implementation, all that kind of jazz, but am I going to need recorded evidence for that then?
I think the big I think so. If I answer it and completely on the wrong line here, they just let me know. But I think the importance is in your planning and your curriculum, it is, and it sounds like you are, you know that not every child is starting from the same place. So you can't possibly have what we don't want is reams and reams of extra paperwork for the sake of extra paperwork. Your children with SEND are going to have, or I imagine, their own support plans, that type of thing anyway, which you're going to have on there details of their starting points and what they're doing. Yeah. Within some of your planning, I imagine you've got some adaptations talked about anyway, about understanding where the children are coming from, and for children who are not at this level, we're building on where they are. Yeah. So we still have your children very well, I suppose, you knowing their starting points, where they're coming from and what you're doing to address that. When you go into setting, what we shouldn't really be seeing is everybody is doing the same thing at the same level. It's that you know your children really well, and you can talk about why you're doing those adaptations. Your children with SEND, you've got that graduated approach. I don't know, anything else, Julia, you think needs adding to that?
Well,
No,
we have. Go on, sorry.
Go on. No, go on, Sarah.
I was going to say, we have our All About Me, which is our starting points, if that makes sense. And then we do our summative assessments. So then they kind of, rather than a daily, weekly kind of record, it's then more focused on, obviously those formative assessments is not recorded as such, but it's those summative assessments that we do end up recording, and that's where we then see those gaps. If we kind of feel in between those children aren't making those progress, that's when we step in, and we have, like you mentioned, we've got that support plan there in place for those children that we feel may need additional support, because you know when you get those that niggly feeling, you're like, oh, so we have that then that comes into play, and it'll either just carry on if we're right, or it will just kind of disappear if go brilliant, they've caught up, they're actually on track, they just needed to settle in, and we're okay with that kind of going forward. So that's what we've kind of got at the moment. So there is that paperwork there, but it's not an everyday, every week kind of tracking progress, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like I say, it's really about that embedded practice, isn't it? That those children, you know, the pivot, and you're providing what those children need at their level. So you can't be expected to have an individual plan for, like I say, every eventuality. Does that mean, it's about the children we send. You've got your SEND support plans. You've got your planning, and you'll talk on there about adaptations needed. So and it's embedded, and the staff in the room know where the children are, what their needs are, and what their curriculum looks like and how they're being challenged. And in particular, the children's key workers will know that, won't they? Because they'll have that real sense of ownership as well over that child's curriculum and what they're doing. Does that cover that, Sarah? I think
so. Unless I know Julia was going to say something.
Sorry, Julia.
Just that Ofsted aren't there isn't any change in them saying, oh, now we want more paperwork. They don't want any more paperwork. It's about you being able to evidence and justify and talk about what you do and why. So you know it's about you knowing your setting, why you do it, what you're doing, why you're doing, and so what's the impact for the children.
Okay, it was just reading that report and then overthinking it.
But it's not, again, starting the reams and paperwork.
Okay, lovely.
Got another hand up. That's okay, Jessica.
I don't know if this is helpful, but we were OFSTEDed in November, and it's the first inspection that they did on the new framework.
Oh, fabulous.
And when I had my meeting with them, when I've done it before, when we've had OFSTED, the meeting's been like an hour and a half, and we've gone through every paperwork and everything and what we all do and blah blah blah. This one literally lasted 15 minutes, and she said to me at the beginning, because I brought my laptop with me, she was like, I don't want to see any of your paperwork. I just want to have a chat with you about everything you do. I want you to tell me all about the children, the ones that you look after, what the needs are, how you address them, blah 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 blah. She literally looked at nothing. She didn't want to see any of the SEND paperwork, none of the plans, none of the adjustments, anything like that. So when I went through it with them of everything we do, the one particular child that was in that day, she said to me to run me through what we're doing with him. So I told her everything that we've done. And she said that what she wanted to see was that downstairs in preschool automatically. So she was like, if I go down to preschool right now, is that going to be able to be seen in the practice? That's literally what she wanted to see. So everything I've told her that we've done with that specific child, when she went downstairs and she sat down there for a little while with them, without any nudges or anything like that from her, they were automatically doing it and automatically making those adjustments. So she had absolutely no interest in paperwork at all. She literally didn't want to see any of it.
And that's obviously because she saw that embedded in practice, isn't it? That's that you weren't just making it up on the day, and obviously because she could come down and see that, like say, embedded in practice, and I'm guessing she did, and that your staff could talk about the things that you talked about, then that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Jessica. Was that helpful, Sarah, as well? From Jessica.
Definitely reassuring. So thank you for that, Jessica. That was my understanding. It was just, you know, when like I said, you read something, you overthink it. So no, perfect. Thank you.
what we'll do, Julia's now going to do the nice part about hopefully how we can help you to make sure that inclusion is embedded in your everyday practice.
Yes, anybody? So I'm just going to move on now, unless anybody's got any questions. Let me see if I can share my screen. Can you see my screen, anybody?
Yeah, we can see that.
See the inclusion. Okay. I don't know why I can't see it on my screen, but there we go.
Oh, let me just, Sarah's just got a hand up. Are you okay, Sarah?
Wrong button. People are going to start hating me. I'm so sorry.
Okay. Don't worry. No, you're fine, Julia. Carry on.
Okay. So I can't see the notes, but there we go. So let me see if I can move on. Okay. So sorry, I can't see. For some reason, my notes have gone missing. So I don't know if I get rid of the chat. Let me just see if I can get rid of the chat and not see everybody. I can't see any of my notes, which is a bit strange.
We got presenter view on.
Well, I don't know what I've done, Sarah. You know me. Let me just stop again and let's have another go. Share that. Okay. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to open up another. Oh, here we go. Right. Can you see my screen? That's better.
You'll see the PowerPoint.
Brilliant. Okay. So now I've got to move backwards again. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is to introduce everybody to our new. Now it's a long title. We didn't really think about the title. It's called the Send and Inclusion Reflection and Audit Tool. So I think I'm just going to call it the audit tool just for speed. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a quick tour of it. So we've designed a tool basically to help you review your current practice in a structured way. And although the tool is being used, has been created using the OFSTED tool, it's not just for preparing for inspection. So it is a practical resource for continuous improvement and team reflection. So the goal is to make the reflection part of your everyday practice so that your best practice is embedded and not just rushed at the last minute. So what are the benefits of using the tool? So first of all, it helps you as SENCOs to lead your send and inclusion confidently, strengthening your role as a leader. Second, it provides a clear reflection framework, giving you a simple structure to review your practice, identify strengths, pinpoint areas for improvement, and then make a plan to address those next steps to improve your send practice and provision. It boosts collaboration as a team, so it can be shared with staff during staff meetings or shared discussions, so that everyone knows the plan and can work together to improve inclusion in a joined up way, not just the SENCO sitting in the office. So it also ensures compliance with the EYFS and the SENCO practice. And as Sarah says, they're intrinsically linked. So it's not just an OFSTED tool. It too comes with the EYFS and the SENCO practice. So it ensures your setting complies with the legal requirements. And finally, it supports key conversations. So with OFSTED, with managers, leadership teams. And as Sarah said, SENCOs are expected to be able to talk about the provision in setting and to identify the strengths and areas for development. So it's better for you to know these things for yourself, and to explain what setting you're doing about it to improve part of your provision, rather than an OFSTED inspector kind of pick out an area and then you have to think on your feet what you're going to do about it. So, you know, knowing your setting and knowing the strengths and the areas of improvement are really key. So this tool really, hopefully, is more than just a checklist, although I think it is quite a good checklist. It's a practical resource to help you support your staff to embed best practice and to make sure your setting is fully inclusive. So I'll take you through in a minute, but hopefully you'll find using the audit tool is straightforward and flexible, we hope. So it's designed to fit into your everyday practice rather than being a one-off task. So you can complete it individually as a SENCO, work through it with your leadership team, with your manager, or use it as part of staff meetings and self-evaluation sessions. So it may take a bit of time to start with, but you don't need to carry out the whole document at once. You may want to complete it in chunks. Now, we did try and put it out in sections, the same way as the OFSTED tool is put in sections, but we did find that there was quite a lot of repetitive repeating of questions. So what we've done is we've tried to put it together within themes. So hopefully you would be able to see that you could do part of it in chunks. So although they're not specific sections, we have tried to chunk it into similar kind of areas. So once you've completed the whole document, you'll hopefully have a much better insight into your setting strengths and areas for development. So from this point, the key is to make a reflection a regular habit. For example, you may want to visit the audit tool every term to review your progress on those areas that you've identified that you want to work on. Or you may be walking through your setting or in a room and notice an element of the provision or practice that you feel you want to work on. And then you can go to the tool and see how that can help you. So by doing this, you're not just preparing for inspection, you're ensuring the best practice is embedded every day. So I'm going to show you the open tool, the audit tool now. I'm going to see if I can open it, see if my tech wizardry works. And let me see. Okay. Can people see the audit tool? Brilliant. Yeah. So I'll take you through. So basically, on the left, there are a series of questions that we ask you about your provision and practice. All right, and it's asking you, how do we decide? So, for example, question 4: how do we decide what each child with SEN needs to learn next? And in the next box, you've got area where you can say what it looks like in your setting. So you can write down all the things that you do to help you decide what each child with SEN needs to do to learn next. So those are the things. So you might have support plans, you review them regularly, put the things into practice, and then you're seeing the progress that they make, and then that identifies what their next steps are. So all the things that you do, you put in there. And you can go through and answer each of those questions. Now, the next box is a RAG rating. We'll go through that in a minute, but I suggest you leave that to start with before you've and answer a few questions before you go into that. And then the next box is, if this is not very full, if your evidence isn't very full and you're not quite sure, you might be looking at, okay, maybe our practice in that area needs some development. So in the box on the right hand side, you can say, what are we going to do to try and make this area better? What do we need to do to improve the practice in our setting for this area? Now, it's hard to start with a blank piece of paper. Okay, so what we've also done is created, if I can find it, some guidance and examples. So on the left here, we have, again, let's go to question 4. How do we decide what each child with SEN needs to learn next? And you've got then a range of things that you can do. And they're quite often, we've kind of put them in 2 or 3 headings. So what we do and why we do it. So this is, we use observations, we've got target support plans, parents, advice from professionals, etc. And this is what we do. So you can look at that list and go, oh yes, we do all those things. You can put all of those things in our plan here. So when you've answered a few, you're thinking, okay, we do that really well, that question 4 really well, so we can RAG rate it. So we can do it green, you know, we feel really confident about that area. We think it's good, it reflects good practice, it embeds the practice, we're happy with what's going on. Other areas that you think, okay, these need a bit of work, you can then put in this box an amber to say, okay, we needed to do a little bit, it needs some attention, we need to do some work. And then for areas where you've got not a lot, you're thinking, okay, I'm not sure we do any of this or much of this, that's going to be an area which is going to be a red. So you might colour that box red and say, this is we need to do quite a bit of work from there. So once you've done that, you answered your questions, you're going to have kind of these coloured boxes which give you quite a good visual cue as to where your strengths and areas for development lie. And then down the bottom of the tool, we've got the action plan. So you might have, I don't know, 5 or 6 areas that you think either need some attention or a lot of attention. And if you've got that many, you need to look and say, okay, well, we can't work on everything all at the same time. So we're going to identify those key areas. So what are the 3 key areas? What are we going to do? And then what's the outcome? What will it look like? Okay, what's the impact for the children? And then any other comments at the bottom. So that enables you to have a plan. So when Ofsted come in and they're talking about your SEND provision, you can say, right, this is what we do, this is brilliant, we work on that, we're doing this really well. We have identified that we need to do some work around that, but we've already got a plan, we're doing this, we've got our plan, this is what we're doing, and this is the impact that it's having. So you're on the front foot rather than the back foot, and you have a really good idea of what your setting looks like, what the provision looks like, and where those areas are that you need to develop. Okay, as I've already mentioned, it's really important that you know your setting, that you have identified the strengths, but also the gaps and the areas for development. So let me see if I can go back to this now. So let's just summarise what we've just talked about as we looked at the audit tool. Start small. Choose one evaluation area to audit first. Work through the tool systematically. Identify your strengths. Pinpoint your priority areas for development. Once you've done that, you can add those priorities to your action plan and begin working on them. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about making steady, meaningful progress. We're available. So if you need help, every setting's got an area SENCO. Please reach out and we will help you. Additionally, support and training will also be available to guide you through this process. I know that the advisory side, the improvement side, are also doing some training on OFSTED. So, you know, please use us, please come back to us, and we'd be more than happy to help. So remember that inclusion, as Sarah said, inclusion is the golden thread. It runs through everything we do, and it runs through that whole Ofsted toolkit. By using this tool, you're not only preparing for inspection, you're improving the outcomes for every child through your provision, through and improving your provision. So before we finish, first of all, I want to ask, has anybody got any questions? Silence. Anything in the chat, Sarah?
No, nothing yet in the chat. What I was just going to say, as I said, that Ofsted report I read today, I did read quite a few others actually, and what Julia, just going back to what Julia pointed out about knowing your areas where your areas for improvement are and having a plan on what you're going to do. That featured quite a lot in some of the reports I read, and they got expected standard because yes, there were some gaps, but setting leaders knew what the gaps were and there were things in place already to start addressing those. So whereas they weren't great at and perfect, the fact that they'd been identified, that was quite a key theme through the reports that I'd read for the settings that were getting expected standards.
And I think that's really important because no setting, you know, we say perfection is a journey, not an outcome. So, you know, nowhere is going to be perfect and nowhere is going to have all, you know, it's really hard to keep all the balls juggling. But to, you know, as we keep going on about knowing those strengths, knowing those areas to improve is really key. So we've either baffled everybody, we've either sent them to sleep.
And just about, could you show just where to find it on SoulGrid, Julia? If you put it
yes. So I will come to that. So let me just go. So so at the end of this PowerPoint, we've got some additional links. And that includes a link to the audit tool, and that will take you there. But I will just show you now where you can go. So just go to the. So this is our the send area of the website, and if you go to key resources for setting SENCOs, okay, right down the bottom. There is a little section that says other useful documents, and it's in there. So you've got the toolkit there, and then your example document, and they're to be used together. This is going to be really important, this example document, and I can take you there again because it gives you some examples of what that expected practice and provision looks like. What's the expected standard? And everything that we've gone for is the expected standard. So if you go through and you think, wow, meeting all of these, you might have them initially RAG rated, but you might think, okay, well, we want to make our provision amazing. So what are we going to do to make it, what can we do to push it into the super strong area, you know, the whatever it's called, greater depth. What's it called, Sarah?
What are you trying to say here? So
not into expected standard, but into the
strong standards. Yeah, so
yeah.
It goes, expected standard is like your baseline, and then it would go to strong standard.
Strong standard, yeah, that's it. We changed all the words, but strong standard, yeah.
We did a couple of settings did trial this for us, didn't they, Julia? I wasn't sure.
Oh yes, well I don't know if if Sarah from In the Woods had a little go. Sarah, are you still there?
You're really on the spot now, but
yeah, if you've got anything to add, Sarah.
Hi, she's just stepped out. Really bad timing.
Of course she has.
It's on you then now.
Of course she has.
Me and just get mortified. People are like, oh, she's
Don't worry.
Now we know that Sarah doesn't sit and listen to all our meetings.
We did have one, and we did have a look at it. I want to say we did it a couple of months ago. Yeah, we had the audit. Yeah, we did. We sat and did it. We did. We sat and did it, and we're going to do it again. We've just decided because we're very nervous. But yeah, we've decided we would do one again. But it was very good and it was helpful.
Yeah. I think as you, Paige and Kaylee, you as SENCOs, I think it would be really good for you because I know Sarah's done it, but I think it, as you say, it'd be really good for you as SENCOs to take that ownership of it, because Sarah, I know, knows the setting really well, and it'll give you that opportunity to learn as well and get that information together so that you can take ownership of it, because as we say, Sarah's not the only leader, you're leaders as well. So
A lot of pressure, that is, Julia.
Yeah, no, well, it is true. SENCO, so you're the leaders, so
It's designed, and I'm going to take the spotlight off you now. Bless you, Paige. Thank you so
yeah.
much. But it is, like we said, it is designed to help build your confidence as well as SENCO's to be able to have those conversations. There's nothing worse than being asked a question and you feel on the spot, and then so you sort of pull together an answer, and then afterwards thinking, oh, why didn't we say this? Why didn't we say we did that? So it's about that, you being able to identify your practice, but also be confident in what you're talking about and what your setting does well.
Anybody else got any questions? Anything they want to say?
Oh, hang on, we've got something from Debbie in the chat, I think. Let me just oh, okay. Who's the SENCO? I can find that out for you really quickly, Debbie. Who's the area SENCO for Mill Lodge Primary?
That's me. That'll be me.
Julia.
I think I've got a visit booked in, have I not? Somewhere. I want to. You can, if you want to, email me afterwards. Whoever it is from Mill Lodge.
It's Debbie from Mill Lodge.
Debbie. Then please do, or give me a ring.
Yeah, great, thank you. Okay, I don't know whether Jane is still there. Jane, did you want to add anything else? She's been very quiet.
I don't think she can be there then.
She wasn't expecting to be here, so I don't even know. Is Jane still on here, Jane Glassy? Or maybe she's been called away. She wasn't expecting to be on. No. Fab. If there's nothing else, we'll hang around at the end as we always do, because we know some people don't want to talk in front of everybody else. So if there's any questions in particular people wanted to ask but not necessarily on screen, we'll hang around for 10 minutes at the end so we can answer any questions. You can pop them in the chat still, or obviously if you want to give your area SENCO a call or email them if you want some support with this, or you're feeling particularly this is an area you'd like to work on, please do. But obviously thank you everyone for your time again, and we have recorded it, so this will go on to SoulGrid alongside the audit tools and that in the usual place, so you can watch it back if there's anything you want to go back over. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Anthony, if you